Hi guys, welcome to Iron Game Chalk Talk. I'm Ron McKeefery, and today's guest is Adam Feit. Adam is the founder of the Young Strength and Conditioning Coaches Association. He is the director of sports performance at Reach Your Potential in New Jersey, and he's had multiple stops at the college level as well as most recently coming from the Carolina Panthers. We're going to talk quite a bit about the Young Strength and Conditioning Coaches Association today and the direction of the profession as it relates to the young strength coach. Look forward to this conversation, and we'll talk to you on the other end. All right, today we're with Adam Feit. Adam, I've known for quite some time. He's created the YSCCA, and he's been a coach that I've leaned on through my career in terms of trying to get a pulse of the young strength coaches and the direction of the field and trying to make this field better. And that's something that I've always appreciated about him, is that he's constantly, since day one, wanted to make this field better. So I appreciate you being on the show, Adam, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, you as well, Coach. Thanks for having me. It really means a lot. Thank you.
One of the things that I want to, before we start and kind of really dive into things, what I wanted to ask you when I was sitting back and researching is, how in the world could you be married to yourself? How could you be married to another strength coach? I mean, my wife, she constantly says that I'm a different breed. So to put two of us in the same room, there's no way that would actually happen. So
yeah, I'll tell you what. I think it depends on really who you talk to. You've got some people that are like, one, I can't believe you're married to another coach, and then you've got the other people that are saying, hey, that's awesome. You never run out of things to talk about at the dinner table, and then you've got that kind of that scope in the middle where you're just like, can you pass the dinner rolls? Hey, how is that kid's squat depth at the same time? So. I think I'm the luckiest guy. I think I'm the luckiest coach in the world. I think as coaches, and now as I've gotten older and gotten married and started a family, we really rely heavily on our support system at home. And I think what helps me is my support system is never ending. It comes with me to work. My support system's in the back seat, crying if I don't have, the right toy in his mouth, or when we go away on away trips and we're visiting family. I mean, I'm always involved in the field of strength conditioning and performance because I'm married to it, and I lucked out tremendously. My wife, Mary Kate, was a GA strength conditioning coach at my alma mater, Springfield College, and never expressed any interest. We were very civil. I actually had a long-term girlfriend at the time, and I had graduated and moved on to start my master's degree at the Citadel with one of your former employees, Frank Wintrick, and I'd come back, and Mary Kate was finishing up. And I had moved on in my career and my relationships, and we just kind of started talking and realized that, as a strength coach, 90% of the time you're talking something about strength conditioning. And I was like, wow, I can talk about this on a date. I'm getting better, and it doesn't, you never run out of stuff to talk to. And so we started talking and just, developed an online relationship of just trying to get each other better. And then it just, by divine intervention, she ended up getting a job interview at the University of Louisville, and where I had moved to, and I was working with football primarily, and she was with Olympic sports, and it just worked out that we just so happened to be strength conditioning coaches at the same institution. We've just kind of taken our relationship and blossomed from there. So, which is great now is Mary Kate's full time with us with our private facility here in New Jersey, and I couldn't ask for a better companion. I couldn't ask for a better best friend, and really I couldn't ask for a better coach, and I'm very lucky to have her a part of my family, both professionally and personally.
Well, let's get into a little bit of the story of the YSCCA. I mean, one of the things that I was always been curious about is how you came about with saying, you know what, I'm going to start this organization, and what were some of the steps early on to get that going?
Well, I think early on, the biggest thing that got me going is sitting in this YSCCA examination room waiting to be called, and sitting there, and and I believe I was about 23 at the time, 22, and getting certified at the conference, and sitting around meeting all these other younger coaches, graduate assistants, restrictive earnings coaches, and then really, getting a hold and seeing guys like yourself, and other master strength conditioning coaches. Finally, you read about them, maybe you see about it, you see the articles on the internet and paper, and like, wow, they're here and meeting all these people. And, I actually started talking to a few coaches and realized, throughout the conference, that's where we learn the best. It's not necessarily just, going to a presentation in the exhibition hall A, or, meeting in this room at 2 o'clock. It was really in between the shop talks that we'd be doing, standing next to, the hammer strength rack, or hanging out with the power lift guys, or what have you, or, and as we know, going out late at night and either having a few drinks or going out to dinner. And it's like, wow, this is when we're really learning. And I realized over that first conference, I wouldn't talk to a lot of the guys, or someone, we just wouldn't reconnect, because, you were on the West Coast and you were on the East Coast and you had football season, or it was Olympic sports season, or traveling with basketball. And it was like, man, we really looked forward to going to the conferences that we never really got an opportunity to kind of catch up. So it was really kind of a impulse move. I said after that, I said, man, we were driving back, I think it was from Nashville that year. And I said, we got to create something online. I said, I just got to do something and just go all out and just say, hey, let's bring together strength coaches, male, female, older, younger, interns, graduate assistants, private sector, whatever have you, and say, let's just create some sort of resource, some sort of newsletter. And that's really the foundation of our organization, is just sharing information to obviously support each other through the field. And, and all I wanted at the time was like, hey, if I had read a book that, my boss had recommended, and I really enjoyed it, hey, let me tell a bunch of other coaches about it. And at the time, I think our newsletter list was, 300, 400 coaches. And now, with the power of mailing lists and everybody joining the networks, I mean, we're well over 2,000. So, we're reaching over 2,000 coaches every other month just through our newsletter. And then we have the website. So I think, it just started where, we go to a conference and we talk and, hey, let's not wait till next year. Let's just, write something online. If I read something, or if I had a learning lesson when I became a head coach a few years ago at Eastern Michigan, I mean, I made a lot of mistakes, and I was like, how do other coaches learn from my mistakes so that when they get their big opportunity, whether it's Division I, II, III, high school, whatever have you, they don't make the same mistakes. And I just felt like, if I'm learning along the way, how can I pay this forward? How can I make sure that we not only make ourselves better, but our organization and our profession is better as well?
No question. Yeah, when early on in my career, that was the biggest thing with me. Was I was a 21-year-old head strength coach when I first started. Was how can I avoid a lot of the mistakes of my peers, and getting out and talking to them is exactly how I did that. What now, early on it was kind of getting in the field. How do you get into the field? All those types of things. Where is the direction of the YSCCA kind of headed now? What are some of the concerns that young strength coaches, maybe strength coaches that have been in it for a few years now, what are some of the biggest issues that they're facing?
Well, I think, looking at it from a variety of points, obviously now, as we grow older, we always hear as you grow older, you go a little bit wiser. And I think one of the biggest things I can see a concern as is kind of the sense of complacency or the lack of urgency. I think a lot of coaches, they reach a point where, as long as there's no waves coming in, as long as they're not rocking the boat, they feel comfortable, their teams are doing well. And then they just sort of kind of get them in a rhythm, a routine. And I love routine. I think routine is necessary. Routine is part of our natural life. If we're out of our routine, we have some concerns. But I think as a coach, when you reach a point, whether you're at a same institution or a college, university for a certain period of time, it's you've got to take care of yourself, but at the same time, how can you better yourself through the organization? So if you have funds, if you have a professional development fund, if you have an opportunity, if I work for a head coach, can I make him or her better? Can I influence what I learn and make him or her better, my superior? Can I make somebody better on the side of me? So can I make one of my assistants? But also, can I make anybody below me as far as an intern or a volunteer? Because it all multiplies. And I think we need to invest more time, obviously investing in ourselves. And I think, getting away, we had talked earlier about, a lot of younger coaches, and I was the same one. And guys that he worked for, Joe Ken, he always said that. He's like, we spend too much time in the science books. Science isn't going to teach you, how to communicate with a head coach. Science is going to teach you how to deal with a team conflict, and not being complacent and having a sense of urgency to reach out to other coaches that are maybe not in your field, but spending a little bit more time, reading in the leadership manuals and going to seminars and, reading the financial management books. And those are things I see as I get older and now a business partner in a private sector business is not everything you're going to know is in the books, but how can you reach out and make everybody else better at the same expense of, hey, I'm getting myself better at the same time. How can other people benefit from that? And I don't know. And we get into that, especially, that summer grind, that winter grind, and, you're coaching 12, 14 hours a day. The last thing you want to do is invest in yourself and read an article on the internet or highlight a newsletter or listen to a podcast. But I think going with that and speaking with our interns, talking about, setting our goals for the year, is we also we get out right out the gate. We want to go from 0 to 60, all gas, no brakes, as a good friend of mine, Donnell Boucher, says from the Citadel. And the problem with that is we go from 0 to 60, and then by the time we hit 60, we can only hold 60 miles an hour for so long, then we get burnt out. And one of the things that I had addressed with my interns this semester is, set your plans, set your outcomes, and what type of behaviors you're going to change to get the results you want, but scale it down a little bit. So if a coach ever says, try and read an hour a day or try and, listen to a podcast every other week. Well, that's a lot of time. It can be a lot of time if you're a father, if you're a business owner, if you're a head coach, if you got 4, 5, 6 other teams, if you're writing articles or blog posts. That we've been seeing you doing a lot lately, but how do I scale that down? Can I read one article every other day? And as you kind of get into a routine with that, that's ultimately going to tie into how this profession can get better. Is by scale it back a little bit. You don't have to go all gas, no brakes right now. Is you got to be able to shift your gears accordingly during the times of the year and find out what your priorities are.
Well, there's I've been doing a lot of research lately. One of the post that I got coming down the pipe is talking about time vampires, where you lose time in your day, and well, it's funny you say that because you waste so much time. I think the average commute is 26 minutes. You're in a car for 26 minutes one way, and obviously pretty much all of us do some sort of cardio each day or, some sort, or watch TV for a couple of hours a day. And those are great opportunities where, like you said, you build it into your day to where it's just natural and you're not wasting time. You listen to a podcast on the way or, this show or something like on your way into work or out. Instead of watching TV and watching some stupid show, you're getting a little bit better. And you build that in so that way when you have a family, when you have a wife and things along those lines, it's just part of your day, and you're not going 60 miles an hour and getting burned out because it happens, and that's, one of the things that we were going to hit on was, one of the concerns I'm seeing amongst young strength coaches right now is, the concern about jobs. Is there going to be enough jobs? It seems like there's a surplus of coaches. How do I overcome that?
Right.
What are some of the things that you see? Obviously, you went into the performance route as a business owner now a little bit. What are some of the directions that you see strength coaches taking?
Well, I think when you look at, when you're applying jobs, and it's something that I spend a lot of time with our interns here in career development because, we'll take interns. We apply our internship program accordingly to, if you want to be a college coach, we structure your intern program a little bit more towards that. We'll get some kids in here that have no idea if they want to go private sector or if they want to work with a high school. So, we take the necessary measures. But one thing that always stands out, excuse me, and when I talk to coaches is, you've got to make yourself or you got to make something stand out about you and make yourself a resource to whoever coach you want to, look for. If I want to go and I want to be, I'm looking for a Division I football strength conditioning job as an assistant, obviously those positions are limited now with the new rules in effect. So if a head coach is going to want to hire somebody, he's going to want to hire somebody with something that stands out. And I think as coaches advance in their field, everybody's going to be required to be certified, whether it's through the NSCA or the YSCCA. Every coach will have some sort of degree in the field, whether it's exercise science, kinesiology, and every coach is going to have some sort of volunteer or internship experience with this coach or that coach or with this school or this institution. So my challenge to coaches advancing themselves is what's going to stand out for you. Why am I going to look at your resume? Why am I going to look at your cover letter and say, wow, that's something that none of these other candidates have? Because if you do it the right way, we're all going to have good references on our letters, and we're all going to call these references that we respect as coaches and individuals in the field, and they're going to say, hey, they did a great job, they busted their tail, I think they'd be a good opportunity for you, we can do that. But, can you find a specialty as you start? And I think that's the benefit of growing into the field. What worked for me was I had a strong interest in nutrition. And at the time, there was a lot, there wasn't a lot of registered dietitians at the university level. And I think through the advancements of, the collegiate professional sports dietetics associations and head coaches really finding the value in a nutritionist or a sports nutritionist on staff, that's somebody that can handle those demands, all of a sudden that person is a strength conditioning coach. They have 4, 5, 6 years under their belt. But guess what? They also can be a dual role. And I'm not talking about, you need to be an athletic trainer certified and you got to be a strength coach because, I think you need to have you need to be good at what you do, but also, what drives you? What is your passion in the field? Okay. Are you a strength and power guy or are you a functional movement? Do you study those movements? Can you bring a corrective program to a high level? Do you study nutrition? Do you focus your research efforts on rest and recovery? So what really makes you indispensable in the field? Because as we're learning, every January, every December, every February, when that opportunity comes, when jobs are opening up and closing up, and as we're going to conferences and trying to talk with others and trying to network, everybody's resume is going to look roughly the same, but what's really going to stand out, and who are you working with and separating yourself from the pack? So when the opportunity comes and you have an opportunity to excel, you are invaluable to that staff. And I tell this everybody, you want to make yourself to a point where if you weren't there for a day, something would happen. Maybe things won't flow as right or maybe an issue will arise, but you want to make yourself so invaluable to the staff that, that's going to improve your job stability and security in this field as best as it can be. So I think, starting on the field, advancing appropriately and accordingly at the rate that you see fit, but also, what else is there? Are you more than a strength coach, or what else can you bring to the table? I think that's something very small, but also gets overlooked because I think a lot of interns, a lot of coaches in the field, they're certified, they've got their basic standard 2 or standard 3, they've done a couple internships, and they've worked with a couple of teams, and that's about it. But you're going to reach a point sometime in your career where that's not going to be enough, or if you're out of a job and you've got to sell yourself, what else have you brought to the table? What else have you contributed to society, but also this organization and its coaches?
Well, I was at the NSCA conference just recently, and there was a group and they did a great job this last conference with providing a track for young strength coaches, whether it be resume design or interview skills or whatever it might have been. But I challenged them with the fact that, there's a lot of pioneers that went before us. Joe Ken, some of the guys you mentioned, Mark Sonovich, and guys that I've learned from. There's a lot of guys that kind of helped lay the framework for us, but they created something from nothing. Boyd Epley created something from nothing. I think our younger strength coaches need to focus on opportunities where's the most growth? Where's something where, right away I can make a big difference? And so my contention to them was look at the high school level. Think about how many jobs that would be and how much, we need to be making it as organizations. We need to be making it almost criminal to where a high school doesn't have a strength coach, somebody certified, because of the risk of liability and all the things that could potentially go wrong there. But that's one area where we could create some jobs. We can create jobs with, kind of athletic directors in charge of performance, so that Yaxel, we mentioned earlier, can stay on where he's coached for 10 plus years and stay on and manage the strength and conditioning department, which he's done his whole career, and be a resource for young strength coaches coming into the profession. And then I think, lastly is education. Until there's a degree in strength and conditioning, you went to Springfield College, there's a master's degree in strength and conditioning. Until there's a degree in strength and conditioning at the bachelor's level, I think our credibility in our profession isn't going to be there. And so if we had that, I think there's an opportunity for coaches that are done coaching to go back and teach what they've done for 20 plus years. Yeah. And really impart that, that wisdom on our younger coaches. But
and I think, as our older coaches, get to the point where, that daily grind is a little too much, and either they take an administrative role or, they just, they pass the torch, so to say. I challenge those coaches as well to say, hey, this field has done so much for you. And that's how I look at it as our organization is those names that you mentioned earlier. These coaches, that you have done so much for this field, and it's our responsibility to keep this going. I was talking with, one of the board members, Brian Mann from Mizzou, and it's saying, you go to the coaches conference once, and then you go 3-4 years later, either everybody's recycled, they're out somewhere else, and it's a completely different crowd. It's a completely different era of, interns and coaches and assistants and head coaches and research and scientists. So the field is always going to be ever evolving, but how can we continue to educate? When you look at a long-term athletic, development plan as coaches, that's how we look at it. And I look at it now from an entirely different point of view. Is I may get a kid that's 13 years old, 14 years old. How can I prepare him to the best of his ability to be ready for a high-level strength conditioning program at college? Whereas in the college, you're looking at how can I take this player and mold him into a professional or a high-level Division I, II, III. How can I get him peaking at the right time? And so as coaches, I think it's the same point is, we talk about our 5-year plans, we talk about our 10-year plans, but as coaches in general, what are we doing to prepare? If I grab an intern now, what am I doing to make sure him or her is going to be ready for a head job in 4 or 5 years? And I think that's something that a lot of staffs have to look at is, you're going to have your responsibilities. You're going to have certain coaches in charge of budgets. But also what I learned as a head coach is I unintentionally was micromanaging when I first started. And because it was my name on it, it was my first head job, and it had to be my way. And I think a lot of our coaches do that. And it got to the point was like, I'm not helping my assistants if I do all the attendance, if I do all the weight room setup, if I do all the budgeting, if I do all the supplement ordering, because if I want my assistant to become a next head coach, which I was very fortunate that they gave him that opportunity, Blair Wagner at Eastern Michigan, that if I step away, that program is going to continue to roll. And I think as our younger coaches escalate in age and experience and wisdom, never forget how you started, because I think we all think about, we got a lucky break. Some of us have, there's no doubt about that. But when you get that break, what do you make the most of? And that's going to dictate where you go next, whether that's up or whether that's down. So as long as we keep that ball rolling and never settle to say, hey, I got my break, I'm at the top level, or I'm at this level and I'm ready to go. As long as we keep that going and we make sure that the next class or the next group or the next biggest strength coach in this field, it will be okay and he'll be ready or she'll be ready to go, I think we'll be in good shape.
Well, those breaks, I've always said to our coaches that, breaks, they come and go, but, they don't have to keep you. And our field's proved that, so getting in and having a plan and being prepared for those opportunities is whether or not you get kept or not. You might get a job based off of something, outside or, a positive somehow, but being kept, that's where the rubber meets the road, Yeah,
that coach is just, especially being in the field we're in, your security and your stability is really dictated by a lot of things that, cannot be controlled by you. And, we always hear that the quotes and some of the advertisements that go on that, you control your own destiny and you're responsible for your frame set of mind. And I believe that to a point. And what I think a lot of coaches have to remember, and I need work on it too, is, if I can't, as a college strength coach, you can't control the score. And so, while job stability or job security may be dictated by that, depending on what type of level you're on, that's something out of your control. And I think some of us, and I know I did as a young head coach, is I got so engrossed in that and got so overworked. And I'm like, I can't control that. As a strength coach, you can't control the play calling, and you can't control whether or not your guy's going to be able to, get that assignment at the same point. So regrouping and saying, what can I control and what can I better prepare? So in the event something does happen, I know that I'm ultimately prepared financially. I'm ultimately prepared emotionally, because especially as you get older, you start growing your family. It's a lot easier to bounce around jobs like I did when I was 21 years old.
No question.
Driving to California, driving to South Carolina, going up to Kentucky, down to Michigan, down to North Carolina, now up to New Jersey. It's a lot easier when it's just you. And as you get older, making sure that you're adequately prepared for any change or any curveball that's thrown your way, that's really going to dictate how long you stay in the field. And I think that's something that also needs to be addressed. As you talked earlier about, the management and the budgeting and the stability. And that's something that we're going to touch on a little bit at this year's roundtable. But in the grand scheme of things, how prepared are you? And it's a lot more. And I learned this from you. It's not about the X's and the O's. It's about the Jimmies and the Joes. But talking with Chuck Stiggins with the YSCCA, family. The three most important things are family, relationships, and experiences. And I've got that on my bulletin board, and I look at that every day. And I say, what are your priorities? Make sure we can build upon each one to make sure that we're ultimately prepared, whatever's thrown our way.
No question. If you could go back, and obviously you mentioned earlier about having something unique on your resume to kind of sell to coaches from a branding standpoint, but if you can go back to Adam at Springfield College, just coming out, getting into the field right now, what would you tell him? How would you tell him to go about finding that first job?
I think one of the biggest things I've learned along the way, and this is something I kind of touched on last year at a local hammer strength clinic at Villanova, is don't get caught up to get your career started just because it's a big name that you see on ESPN. Don't get caught up in a school because that's where the #1 draft pick came out of, and also don't just focus yourself on one sport. And I think, and over my years, I spent a lot of time in Division I football, and once I got to Eastern Michigan, I was in charge of 21 teams, and obviously I had a staff, but I had to work with a lot of female sports. I had to work with a lot of overhead sports, as baseballs and softballs and track and fields, and that was something that I didn't really kind of bother myself with because I thought I'd be a football guy my whole life. And now, where I look at where I am now, yeah, we have a good following of football, but we also got a huge following of boys lacrosse, of field hockey, of soccer, of the basketballs and the wrestlings. And so, if I was getting out of Springfield now, and I've been out, 6 years now, is, don't get caught up in what you see, what you read in the papers and what you see there. Go to where you want to be. Go where you're going to learn the most. And that could be Division I, Division II, Division III, high school. I've met a ton of coaches that don't have the fancy logo, don't have the expensive Nike polo shirt, and all of a sudden you learn so much from them. And I think that's one thing I want to make sure I tell all my interns and everybody that I come across is, don't prejudge somebody. And I think that's something that we still see at conferences today is, and I noticed it last year. I had a Reach Your Potential training polo. I had my embroidery on. It was a nice shirt. But because it wasn't some readily recognizable logo from the SEC or Big East or Big Ten or something you see, I'd say half the people that I usually talk to, I didn't even notice. Because, what is so get to know people on a personal level and don't be the first one, oh, well, if they're not at that school, I'm not even going to bother. Because you'd be really surprised of what you can learn and who you can learn from in this field, whether it's private, professional, or collegiate.
When I went to South Florida the first time, it was a 1AA transition team that, we had a 2,000 square foot weight room and no help, and you want to talk about really quick trying to figure out how to be a good strength coach and being able to do a lot of things, being able to move a weight room around, all those types of things. You learn so much more being in those situations than you do if you go to the 23,000 square foot weight room I just left, where there's really not a whole lot you need to mess with there.
I'm completely in agreement with you. I mean, it's very easy to run Tendo units and monitor power outputs and monitor fatigue and do auto regulatory training and do all this fancy stuff when you got money, you got budget, and you got support. But really, when you got a staff, and that was something I was talking with our primary owner Bobby Smith here. Was, we're trying to, consult into some local colleges, and it's like, hey, it's really easy to do it when it's, a group of 9, 10, 12, 15, high school athletes. All of a sudden, you got 70 athletes, and you've got 2 coaches. You've really got to fine-tune that. And if they don't have a facility, you can learn a ton by saying, all right, I want to get this done, but I only have this amount of space, and I only have this amount of staff. And I think that's where, I've learned, I went from 10, 12,000 square foot facilities when I started off. When I was a head guy, my facility was 3,000 square feet. And all of a sudden, coach is still expecting the same results.
No question.
I had a younger staff. How are we going to get the job done? And that goes hand in hand by, visit these other schools, visit these coaches that, they have to go, groups of 10 or 15 or even later than that and say, how do they orchestrate their programs? They're not going to be the ones on social media. They're not going to be the ones maybe on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. It takes research. It takes, visiting these people at conferences and saying, hey, man, let me stop by. There's great coaches in the area around here that I love chatting with because I'm like, man, this is unique. You made this work for you. I could do it a little differently, but, man, for what you got and who you got, man, this is awesome.
No question. No question. Well, one of the things I've always respected about you guys with the YSCCA and the newsletter is how you constantly add content that's outside the box. I think that we need to challenge ourselves to get out of set rep schemes and think about all the other things that are going to make us better strength coaches, whether it be from a management standpoint or a leadership standpoint or whatever you want to say there. But you're constantly putting things in about money management or maybe apps that are out there to make your time more efficient or things that you're suggesting from a reading standpoint. Talk a little bit about where you guys come up with that content and how you disseminate what's worth spreading.
Well, I really owe a lot of thanks to a lot of the coaches that were around me when we first started. I think in that examination room, it was Megan Young, and she's an assistant at Auburn right now, and getting in touch with her and Andrew Altoff at Baylor, Brian Mann from Mizzou, Donnell Boucher. I've known Donnell, since high school. We played high school football, and he's really a huge early on lead and helping us advance outside the box. Getting support through Brian Mann and Blair Wagner over the years is, it can be a struggle at some point where we try and figure out, we want to be outside the box because we just don't want to recycle the same information. And we're individuals first and we're coaches second. So, how can we improve ourselves as individuals? And that's where when we looked at, the mission statement of the YSCCA is, it's providing guidance and it's leadership to coaches through, it's sensible, scientific, administrative, and practical information. As a younger coach in the field, you want to read everything. You want to read Zach Ziorsky. You want to read Kramer. You want to read, all these books that are like, this is how you're supposed to write a program. Well, guess what? You can write the best program in the world, but if you don't have the facility or you don't have good kids to execute that, that's the worst program in the world. Mm-hmm. And it was like, as we got older and we started talking to coaches like yourself and at these clinics and just seeing, wow, I never thought about that. I have a great program, but all of a sudden coach is running 20 minutes late. Now my in-season lift is now 15 minutes. How do I manage that? Or if a kid goes down during a session, how do you alert the appropriate, medical team and the things, never even think about until really it happens to you. And I think as I talk to more coaches, I get more ideas and I bounce it off the other coaches and say, wow, I never would have thought of that. How did you handle that situation? What do you recommend? Or if you read another book, and something I'm learning now in the business standpoint of view is, don't just devote yourself solely to one area. You've got to be a jack of all trades. You've got to be good at definitely something because that's what your paycheck for. But you make that better by supplementing with other things. So whether it is finance, whether it is applications. I remember when we started off coaching, and obviously you were ahead of me, but when I got out of it and started full-time coaching, text messaging athletes was like unprofessional. It was like, call me, leave a message on the voicemail, or shoot me an email. Right. And I going down and visiting with some coaches, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm just texting one of my athletes. I'm like, what do you mean text message? And now it's like you see all the pages. Now, strength conditioning coaches and groups have Facebook pages for their updates. They have Twitter accounts because that's the world we live in. And we talk about energy vampires and time vampires. I mean, we thrive on social media because that's how kids communicate. So if we have updates, if we have schedule opportunities, we're dealing with a different clientele, you've got to be able to hit that. So I think what's been a real challenge is just staying up to date with everything that's going on, because it's not only just about making yourself a better coach, but if you can become a better man or a woman, and that can in turn relate, to be a better wife, to be a better husband, be a better father, be a better mother, be a better sister or brother, that you're going to be a better coach, and that's a side effect of it. Correct. So improve your time management. Something simple as me, if I don't have time to type my notes up, I'm driving home, I hit my button on my smartphone and I hit the voice recorder. I talk about all the notes I need to write in the next day. It goes right into my document. I upload it to my computer. There it is. It's good to go. So, it's about the convenience. It's about stability. It's about security. But it's also about, convenience of life and really quality of life. And how can we do that? And so, we're striving. We're reaching. We're trying to talk to more individuals, how to make our jobs easier. But really, how do we enjoy this profession that we have, and how do we stay in it as long as we can? Because I think you know a little bit better than I do, but I mean you've seen a lot of coaches come and go, and because they kind of either get fed up with how they're not getting appreciated, or the security and the stability is not just there yet. But we've got some great coaches in our field. There's no doubt about that. How do we keep them in here as long as possible? And I think that's another that's a side effect is what can we do to help?
No question. What you have any suggestions for a book for the audience to listen to or read right now?
Oh wow! I will be completely honest. I just took a brief break. I'm actually on nutrition duties right now for my son, so I don't have a current book. But actually, one that I read pretty recently is actually when I got married, and it was recommended to me almost a year later. So it's just this summer. Was actually the 5 Love Languages, and I don't know if you've ever read that, but it's obviously geared for married couples, but you find out how different people react, what type of relationship they respond best to. But what I took away from that is obviously how can I be a better husband? But really, what that really forced me to look into is as a coach, there's no one size fits all approach. You're going to have an athlete that's going to respond a little bit differently. But really, even more than that was you have to have not a one-size-fits-all or most approach to your staff. And when that was recommended to me, our staff has grown to now obviously include my wife, our business partner, and a few interns. And it was like, people are going to respond a little bit differently. So what type of relationship, what type of language do I have to speak to them? And obviously, the love languages is completely different. But it really was like, wow, they're going to respond better if I communicate like this. They're going to respond better if I communicate like that. So that really kind of opened up my eyes on that. But if you're looking for a pleasure read, I managed to try and get one of those in right now because after my son takes a nap, I'm a little bit. But I recommend Jack Reacher's series, even though Tom Cruise just not a very good fitting description of the new movie. I highly recommend the books on that note.
I got you. Well, staff development, that's I didn't even think about that, putting that together, but that's, my wife tried to get me to read that book, but maybe I should now. I think that's definitely, you touched on an important subject there with investing time into your staff. And, I got to be honest, I've always done that in terms of providing them with a ton of education and holding them accountable and those types of things and advancement, helping them advance. But as far as really getting to dissect them as people and really invest that love into them, that's something that I need to always constantly work to get better at, and I think all of our coaches can. You've been great, man. I think I kept you longer than we had talked about, so I apologize for that. But I think there's going to be a lot of things out of here that coaches are going to be able to take with them. Where can coaches go to kind of follow up more with the things that you got going on? And if there's anything you kind of want to promote right now, absolutely feel free.
Oh, I appreciate that, Coach. As far as the YSCCA goes, we're a group of passionate and dedicated coaches, and we just want to support each other, through this field. And all we want to do, we want to share knowledge, we want to challenge each other through forward thinking, and we just want to dedicate each other to, to become better. So, we have a basic website. If you go to yscca.groupsite.com, you can sign up to be a member. I think we're close to almost 500 members, and we post all of our newsletters on there. There's a discussion board that is active at some points. If you want to join the newsletter list, we also send a digital newsletter out. Just shoot us an email at yscca.info@gmail.com. We check that every month. We update our mailing list and so forth. But if you have any personal questions, I'm the director of sports performance at Reach Your Potential Training. We're about 75 minutes south of New York City, right on the Jersey coast. My email is adam@igotrypt.com, IGOTRYPT.com. Our website is igotrypt.com. Pretty simple, pretty catchy. And please, if you're in the area, if you're a college coach, private coach, if you're just somebody listening on the way to work, stop on by. I love meeting new people. I love sharing knowledge and learning from anybody I can. And I've got nothing to hide. So if you want to watch a session, you want to just talk, Skype, communicate, email, Facebook, it's all good. Just reach out. We'd love to meet you.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. Thanks a lot. Talk to you later.
Appreciate your time.
We'll make sure to have everything linked up down below so that you can go and visit any of the things that we talked about in the conversation. But if you're one of those young strength coaches that are just starting off in the field, maybe you're at an internship, maybe you haven't even gotten an internship yet, or you're in an assistant role and you're not being able to move on or something along those lines, Strength Coach Basic Training may be something that you'd be interested in. It is a lecture series of about 8 lectures that I would give our interns to help them progress along in the field. Everything from how to develop a resume to time management skills to our principles and things along those lines. And so if it's something you want to check out, go to www.strengthcoachbasictraining.com. I think I put an extra W in there, but that's okay. So www.strengthcoachbasictraining.com. Look forward to you next time. Take care.